like, I don't know. It's like I would see or feel or sense red flags, but I would keep going. And I don't know why.
All of this love is toxic. All these kisses and hugs and knock shit. You a damn drug, you toxic.
So we met at work. And I remember I was at a point in my life where I wasn't really looking for someone. I mean, I was thinking to myself that it would be nice, but I was not really looking because I was kind of at a point in my life to where I was like, just leave me alone if you're going to play with me. Because I had just came out of a relationship that wasn't toxic. It wasn't bad. He just wasn't ready for commitment. And so he called me his friend for a long time, even though we were more than friends. We met each other family, was having sex, seeing each other. Yeah. But anyway, so I was a little hurt after that. So after that, I was just kind of like, fuck man. In a sense. And so I remember I started this job, and once I started it, you know, there were some guys there, but I wasn't really paying no mind. I was just kind of, you know, going there to do my job, going home. I was looking cute at work. So it'd be some guys that would like try to flirt at me and stuff, but it was like, you know, no. I don't know. I was just like, I wasn't feeling it. And like, they'll flirt, but I'll be like, no. Maybe because they weren't that attractive to me. That's probably what it is. And so one day, I was in a hurry to get to my lunch. Because I was just like, whatever. I know I only got 30 minutes. Let's get to lunch. Let's get back. I ain't trying to be late. So that was always my thing. Because I knew I had to go get lunch. I always went and got lunch. I never brought my lunch to work. So I was, you know, just walking out, going to my car. And then over in the distance, I heard someone was like, hey baby, or something like that. And I'm like, not again. And I'm just like, then I keep walking. I'm like, maybe they'll just not say nothing else if I just keep walking. So I keep walking. And then they're like, hey babe. I look over, somebody got their arms up above their head like that. Like, hey babe, what's your name? I'm just like, and I hate telling guys, strangers, my name. And I can't remember what I said. I was just like, I think I did say, my name's Kindall. I was like, what's up? I'm trying to inch to my car, like, I'm trying to eat lunch. What do you want? And he was like, oh, you know, I ain't never seen you here. How long you been here? And I'm like, I've been here about 3-4 months. I think it was like 3-4 months that I had been there. And I was like, I've been there like 3-4 months. I'm like, I ain't seen you either. And he was like, oh yeah, some, I've been here. So we talked back and forth a little bit. And I'm just like, got the key fob in my hand, like, I'm trying to go to work. I pressed the unlock, like, I'm trying to go to work. I mean, I'm not trying to go to work, I'm trying to go to lunch. What do you want? Speed it up. Because I'm like, and the whole time, I was thinking to myself, like, he wasn't ugly, but I was just, I hate being catcalled. Nobody talking to me, just leave me alone. That was my thing. Like, I wanted to meet somebody, but I didn't want nobody hollering at me. And so I was just like, what do you want? And then he was like, you know, hey, you know, some, maybe I get your number or something. So I don't know why I exchanged numbers with him if I wasn't really like just, I think I was just like, whatever. And I think at that time, this was in 2007, I believe. And so at the time, I think we wrote the numbers down on the paper or something. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, here's my number, da da da, whatever. And we exchanged numbers. And I went on ahead and got in my car. And then I looked back over at him, and I seen he was finishing like a smoke break. Like, oh, he smokes cigarettes. Ugh, I don't really talk to guys that smoke cigarettes. And then I looked at him again. I was like, you're not ugly. He wasn't ugly to me. I was just like, he was pretty attractive. I was just like, but all the hollering at me and hey, baby. I'm like, whatever. Went on to lunch. Went to lunch. So I went on to lunch, and then next day, we're going to fast forward to next day. Next day, I see him at work again. Just so I happened to see him. And the workplace was pretty small. I don't know how I'd never seen him before. But it had different like rooms and offices and whatnot. So different parts that you can be in. So I could see how I could be somewhere for months and maybe never run into him. It wasn't a very big company, but it did have like different rooms. We were all like, I guess you would say telemarketers. And so they have separate different rooms, and we would all be in different rooms every day. You wouldn't be in the same room with the same people most of the time. But most of the time they keep you in the same room with the same people. It just depends. So you would see the same people pretty much every day. Had different lunch periods. So I seen them again the next day, and I'm just like, it just happened to be in the same room. And I'm just like, I looked at him again, and the light was brighter, because at the time I seen him when I was in a hurry on my lunch break, it was dark outside. And so, you know, I didn't really get a good look at him. And so this time I looked at him, I was like, he ain't half bad. And I'll never forget. So this may not have been the next day. This may have been like a week later. But I remember I lost his number, so we never talked. So when I seen him at work, I told myself, like, okay, I think I'm going to give him my number again, because I misplaced the number or whatever. Because what made me want to give him my number again and not just keep on moving past it, what made me interested is that I seen him talking to another girl at work. And I was like, wait a minute. He liked me first. He was trying to talk to me first. Like, what's that? And I'm like, she don't look better than me, is what I was thinking to myself. I was like, you know, I'm going to give him my number. So I remember in my little cubicle, I said, okay, when everybody leave the room, when it's time to go home, I'm going to write my number down, just give it to him. So I remember I was looking cute that day and whatnot. I had my little hair looking cute, my little outfit looking cute. You know, I always make sure I look cute going to work. And so I wrote the little number down on a sheet of paper that was in there, and I said, okay, I'm going to give it to him when I leave. And so we get ready to go, and I kind of wait till everybody leaves, because I like everybody in my business. And I was like, looking at him like, and I said, here you go, I lost your number, but here's my number again. He's like, oh, okay. He kind of smiled, like he was like intrigued, like, she coming up to me. Like, he probably kind of forgot all about me, because I forgot all about him. It was like actually like a week after the first meeting that this happened. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him my number. So I gave it to him. And so we talked that night on the phone. And I remember the conversation was cool. It was cool. He was telling me that he's teaching himself Chinese and said a few things to me in Chinese. I'm like, that's nice. I'm like, oh, okay. In my head, I'm thinking like, oh, he kind of smart. Okay, that's good. And then he went ahead and told me that he was a felon. He said he was an ex-felon. He was like, I like to get that out of the way and just tell whoever I'm talking to so they know and they don't feel like I'm hiding anything. And I'm thinking to myself like, well, that's good. He's not trying to hide anything. And so he told me he was an ex-felon. He told me that I asked him what it was for. What did he go to jail for and how long? He was in jail for, I think he said he was in jail for like 6 years. And he had been out for like 3 or 4 at the time when I met him. And he said that he was in jail for kidnapping and car theft. Because basically he stole a car when a woman was in it and took her from the spot that she was originally in, and then let her out and let her out another spot. He didn't hurt the woman. Not that it matters, but yeah, still kidnapping and grand theft auto. He was in jail for like 6-7 years. And he told me that, and I was just like, and I remember in the pit of my stomach, I felt the feeling like, I don't think this is a good idea. But I'm like, I'm glad he told me. So I went with that. I went with the, I'm glad he told me. And he's not, that means he's honest. He's not hiding anything. So I'm like, okay. We keep talking. Conversation is nice. It's flowing. And then the talk turns very sexual. All of a sudden, I don't know him anywhere. I think he asked me, like, what's my favorite position? And I felt very uncomfortable. Like, very uncomfortable. But I didn't say anything. And I'm just sitting there. And I paused. And I was like, I can't remember what I said. If I answered him or not. But I was very uncomfortable with whatever I said. And I was just like, I never said that I don't want to talk about this. I never was assertive. And I never said anything like, I never stopped him. I was just kind of going along with it. I think I said, oh, my favorite position is like doggy style or something. And I was just very uncomfortable with the conversation because it changed from that. But I still somehow was like, I wanted to talk to him because I'm like, he seemed like he was so interested in me. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Hung up the phone that night. And I felt a little uneasy about it. But I was just like, hey, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So, fast forward, next night, we talk on the phone again. And he apologizes for talking sexual the night before. He said, when I get real tired, I tend to talk real sexual. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, at least he apologized. He probably sensed that I felt uncomfortable, so at least he apologized. And, we had a conversation and we talked and it was normal. And then he was like, so, I want to take you out. Let's go out. And I'm like, okay. Okay, about time he's asking me out. And so he was like, and I smoke weed too, just to let you know. And here we go. I had that uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. Like, I was like, okay. And so I'm like, I'm feeling uneasy again because I didn't really feel comfortable talking to someone that smoked weed at that time in my life. I don't know. I always had a negative connotation with it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you are an ex-felon, and weed was illegal. Like, very illegal then. It wasn't legal anywhere. And I'm like, so is that very smart that you're an ex-felon, but yet you out here taking chances still with weed and stuff? And I'm just like, thinking to myself this. But I didn't say it to him. I was just like, oh, okay. And then I was like, well, I don't know. I don't really like people that smoke weed, or I don't like the smell. I said something like that. I said something a little uneasy like that. And he was like, well, baby, you gonna let me be me, right? I gotta be me. And so that's just me. That's just something I do and this and that. It helped me relax. And I was just like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay. And so I remember we talked a little bit more. And I remember him on the phone. I remember him bragging. He always bragged. I didn't really think anything of it. I did think something of it, but I didn't know what to make of it. He would brag about, how much money he got. I got 2 cars. And he would say that he said that when he got out of jail, he went and got a job in a barbershop, and he was like, I saved up enough money and I was balling. I I left my house walking and catch the bus with my sister. And then we came back with 2 cars. I bought her and me a car. Cash down. I ain't, this and that, no note and this and that. And, he would brag about, where we worked at. That ain't my only job. I'm a barber still too. I'm a licensed barber. He would say I'm a licensed barber and this and that. And just to fast forward a little bit on those parts, the car he had was basically falling the fuck apart. But at the time, I'm thinking like, okay, he got a car. But I'm telling y'all, just to jump ahead a little bit, the car was kind of falling apart. And the barber license was outdated, or became outdated as we were dating. And so we dated for 4 years. So within that time span of us dating, it became outdated. He never got it renewed because it was some process and he couldn't do the process. So he would just brag a lot, and I felt like, even though I was getting to know him at that time, I felt like that he was doing it to make himself seem better than what he really is. Maybe he was trying to impress me, and so I would think like that. But I'm just like, I don't know. It's like I would see or feel or sense red flags, but I would keep going, and I don't know why. So, well, I didn't know why at that time. I don't know why at that time. Really, it really never crossed my mind why. Especially when before I met him, I had the attitude of like, fuck niggas, basically. But for him, the fuck niggas kind of went away, and I was just like, okay, somebody likes me, and he cute, so yeah. But anyway, so he planned a date, and he said, we're gonna go out this date, such a time. I'm like, okay. So I remember that night of the date, it never happened. And I remember waiting for him. I had on my cute little skirt and a cute outfit. And I remember I had on a little makeup. And I remember laying back in the bed, so I would mess up my makeup up. But I was getting sleepy because it was getting later and later. And I'm like, why haven't I heard from him? And so, date never happened that night. I ended up waking up, and my sister, she was like, he texted you, or he called you or something. I can't remember why you were asleep. I told him you were asleep. And I was like, what time was it that he called? She was like, it was like midnight, after midnight. I'm like, oh, damn. So she happened to have been up and seen it, and she knew that I was waiting for him. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up texting him, like, what happened, da da da. And he was like, oh, I remember I told you I'm a licensed barber, so I be busy. I was cutting hair late. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't say nothing about it. You had me waiting. And I was just like, I blew it off. And I was like, okay. So fast forward a little bit, we ended up talking more on the phone, sitting each other at work and stuff. And then he was like, hey, you can just come to my house. And we never went on a date that he proposed. He was just like, you just come to my house and kick it with me. And I was like, okay. And so he gave me the directions. At this time, y'all, there was no like GPS on your phone. I had to print out the directions to his house, or he told me the directions. I can't remember, but I remember having like a little printout, having it written down, having to read how to get to his house, because he lived about a good 30 minutes from me. Yeah, on the other side of town, in a different part of town. And so I remember I went to his house one night. It was fairly early. It was like maybe 7, 8. It wasn't real, real late. It was on the weekend. We weren't working. Or it was a Sunday or something like that. We weren't working, I know that. And so I went to his house and pulled up, and I couldn't go in his house. Because his house, he lived with his grandma, a cousin, his cousin mom, and his mom. His name was John, by the way. Just the ex I'm referring to in this story. His name was John, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And so, yeah, and John's mom stayed there. So, and it was the grandma's house, which was his grandma, which was his mom's mom. And so, it was her house. She didn't allow company. She didn't allow fornication in her home because she was very religious. She was Jehovah's Witness. And so, I was like, okay, and we sat in his car, and some people came up, pulled up. It was like a bunch of guys that he knew. They all pulled up, had a big pack of beer, drinking beer, talking. And I was feeling a little off because nobody was talking to me. I was just standing there looking nervous. And I was like, I'm going to get in my car. So I went and got in my car, and he's still sitting there talking. And more niggas pulled up, and they all just drinking and laughing. And I'm just like sitting there waiting for our, I guess, quote unquote, date to happen. So finally, all the dudes left or whatever. They finished drinking, and he come to check me in the car. He was like, "I'm sorry about that, baby, but I told you when I'm outside, niggas just a simple because I'm that nigga, and everybody see me in the hood. They want to stop by and talk to me, and that's how I do, So, and I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, it's good you went and got in the car. You ain't supposed to be around a bunch of niggas around anyway. And I'm like, I was like, okay. A part of me was like, oh, I did something right, okay, you know. But really, I was just thinking I was nervous. But I was like, oh, okay, you know, not very assertive at all. And so finally, he was like, well, yeah, we can go and kick it a little bit and stuff. I'm like, okay, we can kick it. And I'm like, okay. And he said, you can come hop in my car. He was like, I got some movies and stuff. And he was watching some movies. You know, we never went in the house because we weren't allowed to. I wasn't allowed in. So we sit outside talking. He played me his CD. He was a rapper. He recorded the album in jail, most of the songs. He was playing the songs and rapping and stuff. And I'm just like listening, like, oh, okay. I didn't like the music, but I was just like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, you know, trying to hype him. I'm just like, yeah. So he's playing the music and stuff. And then we started watching movies. And then all of a sudden, while we were sitting there, all of a sudden, he started the car up because we were sitting there with the car not started. He started the car up and he was like bagged out. He was parallel parked. He bagged off the curb and turned around in the middle of the street and just started driving off. And I'm sitting there like, you know, confused, like, what's going on? And he's like, my ex just pulled up. And I'm like, your ex just pulled up. And so we're driving all through the neighborhood, turning corners and stuff, driving pretty fast. And she on us, following us, like literally.